Everybody get up, no need to cram now. We got a real jam going down, going down, going down, going down, going down, going down. Welcome to the IntelliJAMS. Here's your chance. Learn
What's going on, Alex? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. I'm living. I'm feeling good today.
Me too. Caffeinated, ready to rock.
Same.
What do you want to jam about today?
Okay, so I want to jam on this concept that I've been thinking about, and I've been calling it micro and macro testing.
Okay. What does that mean?
So for me, micro and macro testing is something that we've been talking a lot about here at IntelliJAMS, is this concept of like go beyond the page.
Okay.
And micro testing for me is you have like a very specific reason to be testing something. Like I want to see if I can boost conversion from this ad to this landing page by making a change. So I would call that kind of micro testing. And I think that most of the industry has like a really good grasp on micro testing. I have like a very specific use case. I want to go test it.
So it's like picking a very specific hypothesis, like narrow, targeted, super measurable, and it fits into the bigger strategy, but it's like, let me just like address like one piece of maybe a funnel or something very specific and go improve that.
Yeah, that plus like the nature of like testing it, but also like where you test it. I think like when I consider micro testing, I would say like, hey, that happens on a specific page.
Okay.
And then I think like when we move into macro testing, I think there's like kind of stages here. There's like testing something in a particular page, then maybe something that is existing kind of like persistent across the site. But I think at the most macro level, when we're thinking about testing, is like, I have this kind of like big meaty idea for my business, and like I want to be able to experiment or test that, but it's probably not like isolated to a particular spot. It might actually exist across like the site and just like more generally across my business.
Okay. I like that. So this is like, free shipping offer, which is going to be throughout the site, but then also like even thinking about the types of shipping rates or the fulfillment times, like, do I want to do same day fulfillment or 24, like, next day air as an option, which is not just going to affect like conversion and how much people spend, but also then like some of my logistics and my warehousing and 3PL and something like that.
Yeah, I think like shipping is a good one of kind of that like across the site. And then I think like when you move up a level, you could say like pricing might be like that, because like we work with a lot of brands who are omni-channel. So like pricing has implications on the site, but pricing also has implications in the retail world. Like I might not be changing things inside of a retail location, but hey, I need to be aware of how I'm changing things and like kind of like the knock-on effects of what does that mean for my wholesale relationships? Could I actually introduce a product where if I raise the prices and could better my margin profiles, does that open up retail opportunities for me? So like, that's what I mean by macro, is like, this is kind of expanding into, I want to test something that is persistent across the business, not isolated.
Yeah. So as we're having this conversation and you're talking about, okay, let's jam on micro versus macro testing, is implicit here that macro is better, that we should be thinking about bigger and bigger tests? Like, does that mean, does bigger footprint mean bigger swing? I'm curious, like, is bigger better?
So this is what I wanted your opinion on. Like I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I'll quickly share mine, but I would love to know what you think about this. And I think that it's not that the more macro something is, the better it is. I think that like if you're trying to get to 1 billion, you can't get there adding by ones, but you can't multiply 0 either. So like you can have these like big macro bets, but like if I don't find these ways to kind of like consistently be improving, then I'm probably not going to get to where I'm going. But if I get too caught up in the micro and I just try to find like these plus ones, I'm just going to try to like add little incremental improvements forever and also probably don't get there. So from my perspective, it is a combination of both. But I think more people have like a good grasp on micro testing than macro testing. I think there's a few reasons for that. I can get into that later, but I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I like about micro, and I think it's probably to your point, I probably would have also said both, because I'm a nuanced person. I think what's nice about micro is that there's a very clear hypothesis, a very clear measurable outcome, and you know, probably these are more more directly and measurable impactful. Whereas like macro, there are probably so many dynamics that are at play here, and potentially like also bigger unintended consequences and outcomes that may take a while to play out. And so, you know, to the extent that you have a good mental model and can play some 4D chess in how everything is going to sort of like fall into place, I think that that's great. I also think that they could be big swings, but I also think that there's like, yeah, a little bit of more rocking the boat that could happen. Even if I think about our own product roadmap and how we're prioritizing within IntelliJAMS, there's like the really narrow but important things like, hey, you know, when someone launches a test, it needs to happen quickly and repeatably, or, you know, analytics needs to not take 12 seconds to load, and we spent a lot of time on that. And it's like that's not changing the trajectory of my business by getting our analytics page load time from 12 seconds to 1 second. However, one thing that it opens up is just like trust and comfort using the platform and the ability to use all sorts of different filters, because changing the filter doesn't take 15 seconds to load. So, you know, it's important to be building on a strong foundation, and you don't necessarily want to lose the core. And those very point solutions and fixes are really important. But then also, like, for us, we're like, okay, there's a huge AI native agentic swing that we're taking. There's a big investment in experiential offers and checkout that we're making. Those are things that could transform how customers interact and use IntelliJAMS. So it's like, I think, yeah, we do both at the same time.
You said something in there that I think is important. And I think one of the reasons why like I wanted to talk about this is when it comes to the micro, I think it's easier to formulate a hypothesis because those micro changes are usually more, let's call it urgent and easy. It's like, hey, I'm running this ad campaign to a particular spot, and hey, the conversion here isn't what I think it should be based on like previous experience. Okay, very easy. I'm going to adjust the offer, or I'm going to adjust the images or the CTA on that page and like see what I can do. Like it's a lot easier and like very, I don't know, specific, urgent. Where I think like some of these other things at the macro level, it's more ambiguous, but probably more important. And I was having a call with a brand, and he had a hypothesis that, hey, if I introduce a new flavor or scent, let's call it like every quarter, then I can expand AOV because I have like more product offering for people to go and purchase. And hey, I can drive net new sales by introducing that new product and putting like a campaign behind it. Maybe, but maybe introducing that new product is actually just pulling sales from other products, and you're just being there for customers who are going to be there anyway, and you've just changed the mix. That's like a lot harder to, one, hypothesize what's going to happen. And to your point earlier, who knows what the knock-on effects are going to be from that? Like I put that in, there's not only what is happening on the site, but there's also like, how much time did I put into research and development of like new flavors and new scents? How much am I in the hole on putting that together? So like, there's just so much more to consider when you're testing at that kind of like macro level. And again, that has implications beyond the site. It's, I have to change like co-packing arrangements. I have to do like all these things. So like, how does that play out? And I think like, again, both of these are important. That one's the big swing on like, I'm trying to make a step change in my business. And I think a lot of people get more lost in like, how do I even instrument or think about doing that? And I think a lot of times people just are like, well, I'm going to do it, and then I'm just going to compare before and after.
Yeah. I mean, you're reminding me, and I don't think anyone does audio only with us. So I'm going to share a screen, which is basically, if you remember this slide, we talked about this in the context of our own business, but you have this like classic 2x2 where on one dimension you have effort, so things range from low effort to high effort, and on the other dimension you have impact, ranging from low impact to high impact. To the extent that there are like low effort, high impact things, like you should just do those things. Like that's obvious. Those are the easy wins. And there's probably a very finite number of those because you've already done the easy wins. Everything in this quadrant, you've probably already tackled. And if there's still stuff there, go do the low effort, high impact things.
Yes.
But then like you have the low effort, low impact things and the high effort, high impact things. And in that bottom left quadrant, incremental, and then the top right quadrant, big bets. And the incremental is so appealing because it's like, I can get the gratification of making this change, seeing the impact very quickly. It's not a lot of effort. I can cycle it and it's rewarding. And so I can see impact very quickly, not a lot of effort, boom, 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 boom. But there is this concept of the incrementality trap. And like, you could get stuck in this like loop of incremental stuff without taking the high effort, high impact, big bets. And so, yeah, I think, it's important to do both. Don't want to like miss out on the low effort things, but also would be a shame to not take the big bets and do the macro things.
Yeah. And I think like on the big bets side of things, I think that because they're, again, like high effort, no one's going to be mad if you run like a small incremental test and like it doesn't pan out, or like I can't prove it with certainty. Right. It's like, oh yeah, like it's a low risk thing to do. Like if I do a ton of low risk things, then I can potentially stack these on top of one another to get to something really big and meaningful. Or I can go and try to take like one big swing at something like the new product line we were talking about, or hey, should I be introducing, I don't know, human support like at a more meaningful level across my business? Like these are things that you want to be able to prove. Like you don't want to guess, you want to know. So like I think there's a big piece of this too where it's not just being able to instrument the test, but like, hey, I'm going to go do this and be confident in it. And I think like that's why I love macro testing is you can go do these things and you can be confident in them before it becomes like, I don't know, if we think about like small and big bets, like, can I turn this big bet into more of a medium bet where like I've instrumented this properly and I can launch this to a subset of my customer base and like get a little bit more clarity before I kind of like walk it up into a bigger and bigger investment where it's going to go under more scrutiny.
That makes it, I love that framing of like, how can I take a big bet and pare it back? So I'm still touching the macro, but maybe I'm doing something that's going to give me the leading indicator of that. Cool. This was super fun, Alex.
All right. I hope that everyone walking away from this, like think about how you're testing things. Like, are you testing too much micro? And like, I mean, if anyone's testing too much macro, please let me know. Like, I'd love to talk to you about like how you're facilitating all those macro tests, and we should probably get you on the pod to jam on it.